والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this majlis one filled with barakah, one filled with blessings, one filled with tranquility and mercy, one filled with benefit for us in this world and in the hereafter. A gathering which the angels descend upon, and the angels come and attend the gathering and bring up the attendees of this gathering, bring their mention up into the heavens with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make us and mark us down as those who make the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, brothers and sisters, we're going to move on. After we finished talking about the importance of the intention, the niyyah, the importance of making wudu, the virtues of making wudu, the shurut of wudu, the sunan of wudu, many things which many of us probably had a lot of knowledge about, but as a reminder and as a means to remind the believers, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ ذِكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, remind, for indeed the reminder benefits the believers. There may have been some things which we have mentioned, some small details which we may have been not aware about. Hopefully some of the things that we shared was of benefit to all. So now we're going to move on to one of the most important pillars of the religion, the imad, which the religion of Islam is based upon. The first pillar which every single one of us will be asked about when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The pillar which is mentioned over and over and over all throughout the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The pillar which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam mentioned is the thing which can prevent immorality and evil things and all types of sins that may occur in our lives. If this pillar is perfected, if this pillar is mastered, then all of the other pillars, inshallah, will be intact and they will be in order. This pillar that we're going to talk about now is the prayer and the importance of prayer and the virtues of the prayer. What are some virtues of the prayer? Number one, and the most important virtue of the prayer, is that it prevents us from falling into sin. It organizes our life, organizes our time, connects us with Allah. We constantly have a time throughout the day which we designate just for talking with Allah, communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anybody who may be experiencing difficulties or hardships or depression or anxiety or nervousness in their life, we need to remind them and ask them, brothers, how is your prayer? Are you praying 5 times a day? Are you focusing in your prayer? Do you have khushu' in your prayer? Because Allah, He tells us in the Quran, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَا عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ, that indeed the prayer prevents all types of evil things, all types of evil thoughts, all types of sins or things which are mistaken that the believer may fall into, and also prevents all types of denounceable things that may tempt us or may distract us away from the things that we should be doing, being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the first and most important thing. That it's normal in our daily lives we experiencing hardships and difficulties, but whenever we experience hardships and difficulties, we should first rush to do what? Pray. If the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِذَا هَزِمَهُ أَمْرٌ, right, he would go and pray. Pray 2 rak'ah. Anytime you can't deal with something, you have an argument with your wife, the kids are driving you crazy, you got fired from your job, you lost an investment, you bitcoins or whatever like that, you drop them, right? Anything that you're doing, you're stressed out about and things like that, go pray. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove any hardships, any worries, any difficulties, any type of stresses that you're going through in your life. And this is what we should always remind our brothers and sisters about. If they come complaining to you about any type of stress or depression, now it's a big thing now about Muslims having mental. They just had a big conference in Baltimore, in Maryland. I think. What was it? The mental health dialogue or conference and things like this. A lot of the problems that Muslims are experiencing that they're claiming they have mental health issues is because they're not praying the way that they're supposed to be praying. They're not making dhikr the way that they're supposed to be making dhikr. But at the same time, there probably are legitimate cases, people who have mental problems. We're not negating that. But a lot of the problems can be solved with the recitation of the Quran, with the pondering of the Quran, and with the prayer. Allah, He says about the Quran, what does He say about the Quran? Shifa'un lima fi sudur. It is a cure for that which is in the hearts. The Quran is an absolute cure for all types of diseases, all types of any type of sicknesses or illnesses that we may be experiencing. So that's one of the first virtues of the prayer. Also, the prayer is the second pillar in Islam, right? Min arkan al-Islam, right? Third virtue of the prayer. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked his companions. He said, if one of you had a river running in front of your house, every time you went outside your house, you stepped out on your doorstep, there was a river there. Or anytime you entered into your house, there was a river there that you could dip yourself in and cleanse yourself in anytime you came in your house or went out of your house. He asked the companions, he said, if you had that river, would there be anything filthy remaining on your body? Would there be anything dirty? Would there be any type of dirt or filthiness on your body? They said, no, O Messenger of Allah. Of course not. So he said, similarly is the 5 prayers. This is how the 5 prayers wash us from our sins and our mistakes and our shortcomings. Just how, imagine if you dip yourself in a river, right? You're sliding down the river, right? Cleansing yourself, removing those impurities, removing those sins that you may have acquired. This is what the 5 prayers do for us. Okay? Next thing, prayer is a light. Prayer is a light not only in this world but also in the next. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? As-salatu nur wa sadaqatu burhan. That prayer is what? A light for the believer. And on the day of resurrection, the hypocrites will come and say, give us some of your light that you have. But the believer will say, no, go back. Right? You can't have any of our light. Next virtue, right? Prayer raises the person's status in this world and in the next. Okay? One of the greatest reasons for the believer to enter paradise is what? Is his prayer. Okay? Why do we say, for example, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah right after prayer? To make up for the deficiencies that we may have had in our prayer. So any of the deficiencies we may have had in our obligatory prayers, our voluntary prayers make up for them. Our voluntary prayers make up for them. That's why it's important we try to practice the sunnah al-rawatib, right? Before the prayers, after the prayers. Okay? Other virtue of prayer. Every step, similarly like wudu, right? Every step that you take to go to the masjid, a good deed is written and a bad deed is being what? Being erased. Okay? Anytime you come to the masjid, for example, and you stay in the masjid, waiting from one prayer to the next, it's actually being written as though you are in what? Prayer. You are in prayer. Same thing when you're walking to the masjid. If you hear the iqamah and you're in wudu and you left your house to walk to the masjid, don't rush, because you are getting the reward as though you are in what? You are in the prayer. So don't run, don't jog. Walk normally to the prayer, enter the prayer, and that time that you were leaving your house until the time the prayer started, until the time you entered it, you're getting rewarded for the prayer. Another thing, another benefit of the prayer is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beautiful creatures made of light, the angels, they supplicate for the ones who are in the masjid waiting from one prayer to the next. So many virtues about the prayer. Who can tell us about the importance of prayer? Right? Virtues are one thing, but the importance of prayer is another thing. Is prayer important? What is the ruling on somebody who doesn't pray? What if somebody intentionally, they say, I'm Muslim, but I don't think it's obligatory, I have to pray 5 times a day.
Oh, that's careful.
They've exited the folds of Islam. May Allah protect us all. What if somebody partly prays, right? They pray, when they feel good, and they don't pray when they feel bad. part-timer. Alright? Same situation. Okay? If they're doing it intentionally, deliberately, and they're negating that it's not obligatory, then it's also, right? خروجاً عن الملة. What if they leave it out of laziness? Same thing. Okay? So prayer, brothers, is one of the only pillars that we have to maintain, that you never have an excuse to abandon or leave off. Any of the other pillars, Hajj, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the physical capability, it's not obligatory upon you. Fasting, if you're elderly, if you're breastfeeding, if you're traveling, if you're sick, you don't have to fast, you can make it up, right? Zakat, if your money doesn't reach the taxable amount, you don't have to pay it until it reaches that money. But prayer, no excuse for prayer. You have to pray. When the time comes for prayer, you have to pray. You cannot delay it. Okay? So, the importance of prayer, when we learn, when was prayer legislated?
Medina.
Directly legislated by Allah without
Where?
That's why it's so important.
One of the only ibadat that was legislated in the heavens with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet Muhammad was raised to the heavens from where? From Masjid al-Haram into Masjid al-Aqsa. Right? And he met who? He met with the different prophets and the different messengers, and he met with Musa alayhi salam, and it was 50 prayers. Then he went back and he says, 50 prayers, my ummah is not going to be able to do it. Please intercede with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah to reduce it. So then he finally reached the conclusion that we pray 5 prayers a day, but we get the reward for praying 50 prayers a day. This is the ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. And this is from Allah's graciousness and mercy upon the believers. So the salah was one of the only ibadat that was what? Legislated in the heavens. The rest were legislated while the Prophet Muhammad was upon earth.
So directly without Jibreel.
No, without Jibreel. No. Next thing. So what year was the prayer made obligatory? The Prophet Muhammad he spent how many years in Medina? 13 years in Medina and 10 years in 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina. Okay? So when was the prayer did the Muslims never pray for the first 13 years in Mecca? They only started praying in Medina, or when? When was the Isra? Isra was in the 10th year of the Hijrah. Okay, the 10th year of the Hijrah. So the prayer became obligatory when? In the 10th year of the Meccan period. Sorry, the 10th year of the Meccan period. So the Muslims prayed in Mecca for how many years? 3 years. Before that, they may have been praying 2 times a day. Okay, upon the prayer that Ibrahim and the previous prophets were praying, things like this. But the 5 prayers a day wasn't legislated until the 10th year during the Meccan period. So you would ask, well, what were they doing? What were all the companions and all the disciples of the Prophet doing for those 10 years? What was Allah teaching them? Tawheed. What else? What aspect of Tawheed?
All the aspects of Rububiyyah.
Okay, the people who were in Mecca and they were worshiping idols, right? Did they believe in any aspect of Tawheed? Or?
Yeah. They believed in
They believed in Rububiyyah. They believed that Allah, He was the Lord. But they believed that what? These idols that they were worshiping, right, were getting them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Tawheed that the Prophet Muhammad focused on was both. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Because why? Because one, if you affirm one type of Tawheed, which is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, يستلزم التوحيد الألوهية. يتضمن توحيد الألوهية. So when you bear witness and affirm that Allah, He is the creator, Allah, He is the sustainer, Allah, He is the one who provides everything, then this necessitates that you only worship and only give thanks to who? To Allah, and not to these idols who cannot create anything, who cannot benefit you, or cannot harm anything. So the things that the Prophet Muhammad was focusing on through the revelation from Allah was number one, right? Waking up the intellects of those polytheists who were in Mecca, right? Addressing them with istifham al-taqriri, they call it in Arabic language, right? Or istifham al-inkari. Many verses in the Meccan surahs you'll find, right? Allah has said, قُلْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, right? يَقُولُونَ Allah. Right? Allah will ask questions to them, addressing the polytheists. Say to them, O Muhammad, who created the heavens and the earth? Did you create them? or did they create themselves? Say, if you are truthful, who created them? Did you create yourself, or were you created from nothing? So Allah would address them, address their intellects, and things that they already knew the answers to, and Allah was waiting for their affirmation. And Allah, He mentioned and recorded their affirmation in the Quran. They would say, Allah. And then Allah would respond, well, shouldn't you worship Him? Shouldn't you remember Him? Shouldn't you be thankful for Him? So He was awakening that natural inclination that they had towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but He wanted to direct them to only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being worshipped alone. What else was mentioned in the Meccan period? Not only Tawheed, what else? Akhlaq, fine manners, fine etiquette, good behavior. Okay? Many of the Meccan surahs, you'll find them mention many manners or isms and things like that and behaviors that the believers should have had. So that period was a tarbiyah period, right? A preparation period where Allah was preparing them to love the prayer, to want to pray, to not thinking that prayer was going to be a burden for them, that they would be waiting in the masjid, waiting an hour ahead of time, a half hour of time, ahead of time, waiting for the prayer to be established. So preparation, and it was done progressively, okay? Next thing, the importance of prayer. It's done every day, 5 times a day. None of the other pillars of Islam are done on a daily basis, right? Okay? Hajj once a lifetime. Ramadan once a year, right? Zakat once a year. Rest of the pillars, right? Shahada, alhamdulillah, every day, inshallah. But the prayer is something you have to do every day. Okay? This shows us the importance of it. Okay? Also, the prayer is an indication of one's true belief in Allah. One who has abandoned prayer, then he has to go back and fix his heart and fix his relationship with Allah. Get back to the period of the Meccan period where the companions were getting prepared, okay, to be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray. Okay? Also, prayer is an indication of one's honesty and frees one from some of the signs of hypocrisy. As it came in the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever prays 40 days in jama'ah, then he, inshallah, is free from hypocrisy. He is free from hypocrisy. What else does it do to the shaitan? When you pray, when you make sujood, what does it do? Angers the shaitan. Repels the shaitan away from you. So if you're affected by waswasa, you're affected by evil thoughts and things like this, pray. Inshallah, the shaitan, he'll be upset and you, inshallah, won't affect you. Also showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So before we move on, we need to discuss some important matters. Ahkam al-taklifiyya. Who knows the ahkam al-taklifiyya in Islam? 5. Okay? There's 5 legal categories in the religion of Islam that every single action we do falls into one of these 5 categories. We should be aware of them. Okay? Everything that you do falls into one of these 5 categories. Either it is wajib, obligatory, you have to do it. Okay? Meaning that the one who does it receives what? Thawab, ajr, reward. The one who abandons it commits a sin, iqam. Then we have the next category, which is what? Something which is sunnah or mustahab or mandoob. Okay? Which is if you do it, you get a reward. If you leave it off, you don't get punished. Okay? Then we have something which is mubah, permissible, legislated, which is what? Legal, permissible. Right? It depends on, for example, let's say using this microphone. The microphone in itself is what? Mubah. It is an appliance, a device. But the way I use it depends upon which category it will fall into. If I use it to give a dars, if I use it to give a khutbah, if I use it to recite Quran, it could be either sunnah or wajib. If I use it to sing, if I use it to play in a band, if I use it to call people to fawahish and munkarat and things like this, it could be what? Haram. Same thing with the TV. Okay? The TV in itself is a device. The way you use the TV determines what ruling it will take. Okay? Then we have makruh. Makruh, which is what? Dislike. But what does it mean? Like the application of it. When you do something which is makruh, are you committing a sin? If you abandon something makruh, are you getting a reward? If you abandon something which is makruh, you're getting a reward. But if you do something which is makruh, you're not being punished. Muharram is what? If you stay away from it, you're getting a reward. If you do it, you're becoming punished. So just for the believers staying away from things which are haram, you're being rewarded. Just for the believers lowering their gaze, right? Men and women lowering their gaze, not looking at men or women that they shouldn't be looking at, you're getting reward. Just for us staying away from alcohol and intoxicants, you're getting reward. Just from us staying from relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends and things like this, relationships out of wedlock, you're getting reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, remember we talked about earlier, shurut, wajibat, arkan, and sunan, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about the difference between them. Okay? A shart is a what? A prerequisite. Then a rukn is what? A pillar. In which it has to be within the action of worship. If it isn't, then the action of worship is not valid. Then we talked about al-wajibat, right? The obligations, in which if you miss a wajib, then you have to make it up with something. Such as what? In the prayer, sujood as-sahl. And then the sunan are the preferable acts that we should do. So what are the prerequisites of the prayer? Shurut as-salah. ما هي شروط الصلاة? شروط الصلاة هي 9. The shurut of the prayer are how many? 9. الأول الإسلام والعقل والتمييز ورفع الحدث وإزالة النجاسة وستر العورة ودخول الوقت واستقبال القبلة والنية. 9 prerequisites for the prayer to be accepted. The first is what? Islam. In order for a person's prayer to be accepted, they must be Muslim. They must be Muslim. Prayer is not accepted from a non-Muslim. Second thing, they need to be legally sane. Aql. They have to have intellect. They have to be legally sane. Okay. Third thing, at-tamyiz. We talked about tamyiz. Okay. The person has to be of maturity in which he can distinguish between two things which are different. Next condition, raf' al-hadith. Raf' al-hadith. That you have to be free from any type of hadith. Hadith al-akbar and hadith al-asghar. Okay, hadith al-akbar and hadith al-asghar. What's hadith al-asghar? الريح أو بول أو غائط أو نوم. Okay, what is hadith al-akbar? The small hadith is what? Passing gas, urinating, defecating, sleeping. What else? Eating camel meat, as we said. Okay, what else?
A lot of blood.
A lot of blood, large amount of blood, small amount of blood, no. What is hadith al-akbar? Anything which necessitates ghusl. Janaba, hayd, right? Once a woman finishes her menstrual cycle, she needs to take a bath. Nifas, if a woman finishes her postpartum bleeding, she needs to take a bath when she's done. Okay, these necessitate what? Ghusl. Next shart, okay, we said, izalatul najasa, removing filth and impurities from the place of prayer and also from where? From your garments and from yourself. Okay, izalatul najasa min al-badan or izalatul najasa min makan anta satusalli fiha. Next thing, satar al-awra. Satar al-awra. Your awra has to be covered. What is your awra? Where is it?
In between the navel and the navel.
Okay, there's two types of awra. Two types of awra which the scholars have mentioned. You have al-awra al-mughallada wal-awra khafifa. Okay, what is the difference between the two?
You can't pray. You have to cover. You have to have your shoulders covered.
العورة المغلظة القبل والدبر خفيفة
ممتاز.
من الركبة لغاية السرة.
ممتاز. Al-awra khafifa, right, is from the knees, right? Anything close to the knees and anything close to the belly button, the navel. Awra mughallada is the closer you get to your private areas, then it becomes even more severe of an awra. Okay, because we have narrations from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, stories as well, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with Abu Bakr and who? And Umar. They were sitting where? On a well. They were sitting and they were conversating. I believe they were sitting around a well, or they were sitting in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's house. I can't remember exactly where they were, but then it was in the house of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he was sitting with Abu Bakr and Umar, his izar was lifted a little bit above his knees, as the narrator mentions in the hadith. But then when Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu knocked on the door, and the Prophet saw that it was Uthman, he lowered his izar below his knees. And he says, how can I not be shy from the one who the angels are shy from? So, these are from the fada'il of Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. May Allah gather us with them in the day of resurrection, inshallah. So the scholars, they looked at that hadith and they said, well, the awrah is actually two categories. Right? Because if it was only from the knees to the navel, then the Prophet Muhammad would never have exposed that part to his companions, Abu Bakr and Umar. But since he did, right, and it wasn't, the high thigh, probably the middle thigh and things like this. So this is where the scholars have categorized the awrah into two parts. Okay, the regular awrah, which men should have covered, right? Normally when they pray and things like this, from the knees to the navel, because in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, they didn't have clothes like us. They didn't have Gucci and Giovanni and Walmart and Polo and Tommy Hilfiger and clothing manufacturers and things like this. What did they use for clothes? They used wool, suf, right? Fabric. Sometimes they didn't even have clothing, some of them. Companions were so poor, some of them, they didn't even have clothing. Right? They would sometimes just wrap something like a bed sheet around them. And they would pray in a bed sheet, like this, wrapped up like this. Right? Or they would pray with an izar. They had two garments, an upper one and a lower one. Sometimes they didn't even have a rida. They didn't even have a top garment. They just prayed with an izar sometimes. Okay? So, but that's a different scenario. That now when we pray and things like that, your prayer, you should not pray with any part of your body exposed for the men, not even your shoulders or any part like that. As for the woman, the awrah is her whole body around foreign men, except for the what? For those who take the opinion that the niqab is not obligatory, that it's desirable or mustahab, then then her face and her hands can be shown, right? But as for those who consider the whole body to be awrah, then her whole body should be covered all the time, except when she is what? When she is praying. Her face and her hands can be exposed. Another thing that our sisters need to be aware about too is the feet. Okay, the feet is awrah, no matter what. No difference in opinion in regards to that. Your feet need to be covered. When you're outside, when you're praying, right? When you're around men who aren't related to you, okay? Or there's interaction with men and things like that, your feet need to be covered, and where they cannot be, shown how they look or what's the shape or what's on them, nail polish or whatever you have on them, or manicure or pedicure or whatever you have. Okay, the feet need to be covered. All right. Next condition. Okay, we said dukhul al-waqt and istiqbal al-qibla and niyyah. And the last three conditions is what? That the time has to be right for the prayer, and you have to be facing what? Facing the qibla. And the last condition is what? An-niyyah. An-niyyah. So now we're going to go into detail about those. Any questions about those conditions? Any conditions about those? Any questions about those conditions?
Like an airplane or traveling, if you can't face the qibla, what do you do?
Okay. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. You fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of your ability. You try to determine where the qibla is. Initially, in the beginning of the prayer, you should try to determine where it is. Allahu Akbar, face the qibla, and then pray. But if the plane moves, you don't have any control over that. Right? So try your best in the beginning of the prayer to face the qibla. If you can't find the qibla for some reason, use your ijtihad. Look at the sun. Where is the position of the sun in the sky? And do your ijtihad from there, inshallah. Any questions about the shurut? Any questions about the shurut? Okay. Anybody want to know about the proofs for any of the shurut? Okay, we can mention them. The first one, الشرط الأول إسلام وذلك أن غير المسلم وهو كافر عمله باطل وحابط غير مقبول كما قال سبحانه وتعالى ومن يكفر بالإيمان فقد حبط عمله وهو في الآخرة من الخاسرين. So the first condition that we mentioned, which is Islam, that somebody needs to be Muslim in order for their prayer to be accepted. The non-Muslim, all of his actions are batil, are false, and they're not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. as Allah says, whoever disbelieves in faith, whoever disbelieves in Iman, then all of the person's deeds have been not accepted and they're invalid. And he is in the hereafter from amongst the losers. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ أَن يَعْمُرُوا مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ شَاهِدِينَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ بِالْكُفْرِ أُولَٰئِكَ حَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ وَهُمْ وَفِي النَّارِ هُمْ خَالِدُونَ. Allah says in the mushrikeen, they didn't used to attend or didn't used to fill up the masajid with worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they have witnessed amongst themselves and against themselves about their disbelief, and their actions have been not accepted, and they will be forever in the hellfire. Okay, and we mentioned the proof for al-aql, the intellect, right? Is the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, رفع القلم عن ثلاثة, that the pen has been lifted from who? From three people. Okay, who are the three people? We mentioned them earlier. The sleeping person until he wakes up, the crazy person until he comes back to sanity, and the boy or girl until they reach what? Until they reach the age of puberty. Okay? The next one, a tamyiz, we said. What is a tamyiz? Shma'na tamyiz.
Discernment, age of discernment.
Discernment, I guess you can say, right? أن يكون مميزا وإنما يبلغ حد التمييز في السابعة ولهذا جاء في حديث مروا أبنائكم ويشمل البنين والبنات بالصلاة ل7 سنين واضربوهم عليها ل10 سنين لأنه إذا بلغ 7 سنوات يكون مميزا ويفهم ويحسن أن يقيم العمل إذا وجه وبين له وهو وقت الأمر بالصلاة. So the age of 7. Okay, many of the scholars have specified it at the age of 7, at the age of 10, at the age of 10. Okay, so once the boy reaches the age of 7, then he should be ordered to pray. It's not obligatory upon him to pray at the time, but you should be what? Training him to pray. So what is the obligation that the parents need to fulfill? How would you fulfill the obligation that the Prophet said? Murru abna'akum. You tell them, it's time to pray, pray. Salli ya ibn. Alhamdulillah, you fulfilled your obligation. No more you need to do with that. Maybe some more encouragement. Hey, come on, come with me to the masjid. But you should not put your hands on him. You should not spank him or anything like that. At the age of 6, at the age of 5, at the age of 4, at the age of 8, at the age of 9, not until he reaches what? The age of 7. And spanking at that time shouldn't even be hard or harsh, right? It should just be a reminder for him, right? A way that you encourage him and look at him sternly, right? And show him that it's serious, that you need to start praying now. Okay, there can be other ways as well, right, for punishment and things like that. But it's spanking where you're not trying to hurt him, spanking where you're trying to what? Teach him. Okay, there's a difference between الضرب الضرب المبرح وغير المبرح والضرب لتأدب وضرب لتعليم وضرب للانتقام أو ضرب للغضب or something like this, right? So there's different types of way that you can spank. You can spank to teach, right? Normally, right, when we were growing up, many of the elders, when we were in school, some of our teachers used to beat us with a ruler or something like that, hit us in the hands and things like that. Right now it's prohibited, and this is why we see the difference in the way that our kids. Back in our day, you couldn't say anything to the teacher. You'd get punched in the eye or something, or kicked out of the chair or spanked. Maybe in the Arabic countries even worse than how it used to be here, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, and look at how, you know, the tarbiyah of, you know, the older generation they have now, the respect they have for the elders. Now, when we look at our youth, many of our youth now, you find pictures, videos on YouTube where the kids are fighting the teachers. Kids are swearing at the teachers, spitting at the teachers. No respect for the teachers in the schools and things like this. And I believe humbly that one of the reasons is because there's no means for the educators to discipline the kids in the way that they need to be disciplined. So the next shart, okay, izalatu or rafa' al-hadath. We talked about removal of any type of impurities. Allah, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "La taqbalu salatun bi ghayri tuhur." Right? That prayer will not be accepted except with what? With at-tuhur, which is tahar. Next shart, izalatu al-najasa. من البقعة التي يصلى عليها ومن الثياب ومن البدن كما قال سبحانه وثيابك فطهر. والأصل في الطهارة هو الماء فإن كانت النجاسة في الأرض يصب عليها الماء وإن كانت في غيرها تغسل حتى تطهر. So What we meant here by removal of najasa, impurities, is the place, the area in which you're praying in. So let's say you're praying in your house, you have a rug, but you have a lot of kids. And sometimes the kids run around with diapers, it's off. They run around naked. Your wife is changing the diaper, so she lets the kids run around sometimes to air out a little bit, right? So then the kid, he pees on the rug, or he poops on the rug and things like this, right? And you pray there. Or you're sitting sometime and you smell something that smells like urine or smells like, number 2 or something like that. Can you pray on that thing even though it's been maybe a little bit washed and things like that? No. What you should do is what? Pour water on it, okay? Make sure that it's clean, right? It doesn't have to be 7 times or anything like that. Pouring enough water where the impurity is what? Is removed. As it came in the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when the Bedouin came into the masjid and he urinated in the masjid. And all the companions wanted to stand up and get on him and jump him and things like this. The Prophet, he said, "Da'hum." He says, leave him. Right? Let him finish, and then we'll go talk with him in a humble manner and guide him and things like this. So, impurities need to be removed from the area that you're praying. Okay, number 1. Number 2, your body. Okay, if you have any impurities on your body, and also your what? Your garments as well. As Allah says in the Quran, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. And as for your garments, then make them pure, make them clean. Okay. Next condition, سَتَرَ الْعَوْرَةِ وَهِيَ مَا يَجِبُ تَغْطِيَتُهُ وَيَقْبَحُ ظُهُورُهُ وَيُسْتَحْيَ مِنْهُ. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد أي عند كل صلاة ولهذا من صلى وهو عار ليس عليه ثياب فصلاته باطلة بإجماع أهل العلم إلا إذا كان فاقدا لها. وجاء أيضا في الحديث لا يقبل الله صلاة حائض إلا بخمار والمرأة تغطي بدنها كلها في الصلاة إلا وجهها وإذا كانت بحضرة الرجال أجانب فإنه حتى الوجه يغطى للأدلة كثيرة على وجوب تغطية المرأة وجهها إذا كانت بحضرة الرجال الأجانب. The same thing that we mentioned. Okay, about the aura. What is the aura? The aura is whatever it is obligatory for you to cover. Okay, and what you dislike showing and exposing to other people, and that you're shy to show other people. Okay, Allah, He says in the Quran, "O son of Adam, take your zina, take your adornments, wear your best of garments, and cover yourself in the best of ways in every masjid that you attend." Meaning what? Not every masjid, but every prayer that you pray in. Okay? Not only having the best appearance when you come to the masjid, but also having the best appearance when you're praying, because you're talking to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine if you were to be summoned to go meet the governor of North Carolina, or the leader of a country, or the leader of a big corporation, and things like this. How would you dress to go meet him? Let's say you have a job interview to be a CEO of a big corporation or company. How would you dress?
Sure.
Would you just wear like a t-shirt with some shorts and things like that, or would you dress sharp? Get some nice shoes, maybe nice shirt, nice creased pants. You'd look the sharpest you could.
Unless you go on Facebook.
Unless you're doing an online interview and things like that. Yeah, you can wear anything. It's doing your pajamas, right? Again. Now, if we are adorning ourselves so much for people of this dunya, right? People of this dunya, people who have statuses, our bosses, business meetings and things like that. What about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَهُوَ مَلِكَ الْمَلُوكِ. He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Don't you think that Allah loves for you to show the ni'mah that He has given you? Allah has given you wealth. Wear nice clothes. We're not saying spend $5,000 on a thawb. Wear nice clothing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves for His servants to show athar al-ni'mah alayhim. Right? He loves to see His servants show the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon them by wearing nice clothing, having nice things, having nice cars and things like this. Okay? So also the woman, okay? What did we say? In the kulli salah. وَلِهَذَا مَنْ صَلَّى وَهُوَ عَارًا لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ ثِيَابٌ فَصَلَاتُهُ بَاطِلَةٌ. So whoever prays and they are exposing their aura, okay, or they don't have clothes on, then his prayer is not accepted by the consensus of all the scholars. Except, like I mentioned, except in the case for somebody who doesn't have clothes. Okay? Except for the case that somebody doesn't have clothes. Okay? But at least his awrah, okay, the khafifa should be covered. Okay? They cannot pray naked. They cannot pray naked. Okay? They cannot pray naked. Okay? Or if they don't have the ability to buy clothes. Okay? لا يقبل الله الصلاة حائض إلا بخمار. So also a woman, her prayer will not be accepted unless she's wearing what? A khimar. Okay, a khimar, hijab, right, which goes over, which covers the chest as well. So the woman, she should cover all of her body as we mentioned in the prayer except for her face. Okay? If she is in the presence of men who are not related to her. Okay? And also, if there are men who are not related to her, then she should also cover her what? Face, for those who consider the niqab to be obligatory. Okay? Next one, dukhul al-waqt. Okay, entering, I think we all understand that shart, okay, that the prayer has to be done, and the condition for the prayer to be accepted, right? You can't pray dhuhr before it's time. Okay? You can't pray. Well, let me ask you guys a question. At Masjid Ibad al-Rahman and Parkwood, they pray dhuhr at Jummah at 12, right?
Yeah.
Why? How?
You got two Guma.
That is the.
What's the proof?
That is the.
What time does dhuhr come in?
12:24.
12:24. Okay. 12:24. Dhuhr comes in at 12:24 or
12:24, 12:34, yeah.
in summertime? This is in when we put back the clock. But now it comes in at 1:10.
Now
Okay.
come. What time now come? 1 o'clock.
So this is an issue. This is an issue which is important to know. Okay, that's why I brought it up. We have the same situation in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Masjid that I am the imam at, we pray at 12:15. Okay, all year round, we pray at 12:15. This is before Zawal, qabla Zawal. Okay.
This is your wife.
Yeah, qabla Zawal. Right? So, there's two opinions in the issue. Okay? You have the opinion of the majority of the scholars, okay, which say that the prayer has to be prayed when? After Zawal. After the sun reaches its zenith. Dhuhr time, the same as Dhuhr time. Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa. Okay, Imam Malik, he has an opinion that you can start the khutbah before Zawal, but the prayer has to be when? After Zawal. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, and is the actual validated opinion of the Hanabila, the scholars of the Hanbali madhab, is that the Dhuhr prayer, the Jummah prayer, can be prayed anywhere from the time of the normal Salat al-Eid prayer all the way up until the Asr prayer. Because they use the qiyas based upon the time of the Eid prayer. And there's also a hadith, okay, in Sahih Muslim and other hadith which come along, which they can be understood that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sometimes would pray before the time of Zawal, for only what? For only Salat al-Jum'ah. For only Salat al-Jum'ah. So alhamdulillah, this is something which is good. Nobody should have a doubt about that at all. And actually it's beneficial for the community. It's beneficial for the community because you have people who have different needs. Some people may be working for the state. Some people may be working where their schedule doesn't allow them to get out of work at that time. So they have two choices. They can either pray at 12, or they can pray at 1, or they can pray at 2. So this makes things easy upon what? Upon the ibad, easy upon the worshippers and the different people and their needs. So this is something which is great. Alhamdulillah.
With the group, we Jum'ah is done with Dhuhr.
If you pray Jummah, one is a bedel for the next. You know, Jummah is a bedel for Dhuhr. If you pray Jummah, khalas, you don't need to pray Dhuhr. Except in certain situations, like if you're traveling, ما عليك جمعة. إذا أنت مسافر ما يجب عليك الجمعة. If you're traveling, it's not obligatory for you to pray Jummah, but it's obligatory upon you to pray what? Pray Dhuhr. If you miss Jummah, for some reason, maybe you were in emergency in the hospital or things like this, you couldn't get to the congregation or things like this, you pray Dhuhr, you don't pray Jummah. If you're living in the Badia, right, in Tuti, in Sudan, you're living in the island of Tuti, right, and your way out, you're hunting Khazan, Shaykh? You're hunting deer, and you're going out on a hunting trip, and there's only 3 of you. And you're way up. You're 50 miles away from any masjid or anything like that. What do? If there's 3 people, if you wanted, you could pray Jummah. Right? 3 people is a jama'ah. And even to some scholars, 2 people is a jama'ah, if you want. Allah says in the Quran, right? إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ فَاسْعَوْا صيغة الجمع, right? How many people? At least 3. No particular number, 20, 40, 90, however many people. The later scholars came along and determined it. No, right? فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, at least 3 people. So if you wanted to, you could pray Jummah. If somebody wasn't qualified to give a talk or a khutbah or something, you could pray Dhuhr. Because you guys are so far out from the city bounds, things like that, where you could be excused for praying Jummah.
If you didn't catch the khutbah comes the last sector.
If
the last sector.
the khutbah.
Salat al-Jum'ah.
Khutbah is not wajib for you to come.
Yeah.
خطبة الجمعة ليست بواجب حضور خطبة الجمعة لكن من مستحبات. The khutbah is not obligatory upon you to attend, but the prayer is obligatory upon you to depend unless you have an excuse. Okay? But we should get into the habit of coming early. So many virtues in coming early for Jummah. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, what did he say about the hadith? Who knows about the hadith, about the different times in Jummah? The one who comes in the first hour, is as though he slaughtered a camel, his reward. The one who comes in the second hour, cow. The one who comes in the third hour, sheep or chicken. The one who comes in the fourth hour, chicken. The one who comes in the last hour, bela. That's it. So, subhanAllah, Jummah was a holy and sacred day for the early Muslims. Right? They would leave off everything they would have to do in the morning. They would pray Fajr, wait in the masjid, make the dhikr of Allah, read Quran. There's even narration, some shuyukh that we know, that we've met, we've studied with, Shaykh Abdullah Ghudayyan, rahimahullah, from Saudi Arabia, who passed away, who was from the Kibar Ulama, Lajna Adhan, and things like this. It's mentioned about him that every Jummah, him and his companions from amongst the shuyukh, every Jummah they would do a khatam of Quran between Fajr and Dhuhr. Between Fajr and between Jummah. They would sit, come in the masjid, pray Fajr, start reading, and then Jummah, khalas, khatam. They would finish the Quran. That was the ihtimam and the care that the scholars actually show to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into that day of Jummah. So don't لا تحرم نفسك من الأجر يوم الجمعة. Right? Do not prevent yourself from getting the reward on the day of Jummah. Try to come as early as possible. Right? Then go back to work. After Jummah, go back to work. Work 12-hour shift. Work from
so
one.
A Muslim cannot go hunting in Jummah day.
Right? تتبع الصيد, right? Following, hunting, and animals and things like this, right? You can hunt on Jummah, but you can't go out early in the morning where all the deer and things are running around. That's the prime time to catch all those animals and things like that, right? Unless you go at night. They come out at night after Maghrib, in the early parts of the morning, for Fajr, things like that, right? So, inshallah, he'll invite us to Sudan. We'll all go for a trip, inshallah. Tuti, inshallah. Inshallah. So, Allah bless you guys, inshallah. Istiqbal al-Qibla. We talked about what? The Qibla, the importance of facing the Qibla, okay? As the Prophet Muhammad said in the hadith, لِمُسِيء صَلَاتُهُ إِذَا قُمْتَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَأَسْبِغَ الْوُضُوء ثُمَّ اسْتَقْبَلَ الْقِبْلَةِ. If you come to establish the prayer, do isbad of wudu, meaning make sure that your limbs of the wudu are fully washed properly and things like this, and then face the direction of what? Face the direction of the Qibla. And then the last condition is what? An-niyah, the intention. What is the virtue of the intention? What is the importance of the intention? What is the legislation and justification of the intention. What does it do?
Validates the action.
Okay, validates the action, but it also distinguishes between actions which are done in a similar manner. The only thing that determines whether you're getting rewarded for Sunnat al-Fajr or the Fard of Fajr is what? Your niyyah. Same thing. You come into the masjid, you pray 2 rak'ats, either it's for Tahiyyat al-Masjid or Sunnat al-Fajr. You can combine those 2 intentions. Okay? For voluntary actions of worship, you can combine 2 intentions and get rewarded for both of them. So you come to the masjid, your intention, first thing I do, I pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid, and I'm praying my 2 sunnah for Fajr. So you combine those 2 intentions. But you cannot combine a voluntary intention with a obligatory intention. Okay? It has to be one or the other. But when you look at the actions, they're done the same way. Right? The 2 sunnah you would pray for Fajr are the 2 rak'ahs that you would pray for the Fajr prayer. The only thing that differentiates and distinguishes is what? Your niyyah. These 2 are for Fajr, these 2 are for Sunnat al-Fajr. Okay? So, are you guys tired yet?
I have a question.
You guys tired yet?
Yeah, I'm leaving at 10:30.
Leaving at 10:30. Okay, all right. Who else is leaving? If people are here, we go, and I'll keep going. You come to know me, inshallah. More I come back. I can sit and sit and sit. If people are ready and people are willing, I told you this is how the earlier scholars and companions and the tabi'een and the muhaddithin, this is how they used to study. They would designate 3 days, 4 days, go see their teacher, sit with them, live in the house of their teacher would teach them, and then they would be on their way and go back home and spread the knowledge. One of the great muhaddithat that I mentioned, right? I mentioned last night, one of the great women scholars of hadith, who was from the students of Imam al-Bukhari. Her name is what? Karima. Look her up, right? Karima bint Marwaziyah. One of the great women scholars of hadith. She had many shuyukh. From amongst her students, or from amongst those who benefited from her, is Khatib al-Baghdadi. You ever heard of him? Khatib al-Baghdadi, one of the greatest scholars, who has a book in every single fan, every single type of branch of science in Islam. One of the most strongest scholars in regards to history, in regards to narrators and biographies and these type of things. Right? He read to her Sahih Bukhari, I think in 2 nights or 3 nights. So some of the scholars of Islam, some of the shuyukh were women that they would benefit from, and they would read to and things like that. So they would designate some of their time. So arkan, what are the arkan? So we talked about the shurut, these are the prerequisites. Now we want to take the arkan. Ma hiya arkan as-salah? Arkan as-salah. Arkan as-salat hiya 14. Okay? 14 are the pillars of the prayer. وهي القيام مع القدرة والتكبيرة الإحرام. The first pillar is what? Standing, okay, with the ability to stand. If you have the ability to stand, then you have to stand. Okay? Second one is what? Takbir al-ihram, saying Allahu Akbar in the beginning of the prayer. Next one, Qira'at al-Fatiha, reciting Surah al-Fatiha. Okay, next one, al-Ruku', bowing. Next one, al-I'tidal ba'd al-Ruku'. Next one is what? Straightening your back up when you come up from Ruku'. Next, as-Sujud ala a'da as-sab'ah. Wal-Raf'u minhu is prostrating on 7 limbs or 7 parts of your body, and also coming up from sajda. Then al-jalsatu bayna sajdatain, also the sitting between the 2 prostrations. وَالطَّمْأَنِينَةُ فِي جَمِيعِ الْأَفْعَالِ, and having tranquility and calmness throughout all the movements of your prayer. Also, at-tartibu bayna al-arkan, and the organization, okay, and all the movements in the prayer must be in what? In the correct order, okay? At-tashahhud al-akhir, the final tashahhud is also a pillar. وَالْجُلُوسُ لَهُ, also sitting and sending salah upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what? The taslim. Those are the arkan of the prayer, okay? The qiyam ma'al qudra, okay? Standing if you have the ability to stand. What is the proof from the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, right? صلي قائما فإن لم تستطع فقاعدا فإن لم تستطع فعلى جنب. So the Prophet, he said, pray standing up. If you don't have the ability to stand, then sit. If you don't have the ability to sit, then lay down. Okay? But what is the detailed explanation of that? And then we'll take, this will be the last pillar we take, or the first pillar, and it'll be the last thing that we go into detail with until tomorrow. We'll commence, inshallah, tomorrow. We'll finish tomorrow. So, let's explain that, right, in more detail now. Let's say that brothers have ankle problems or feet problems. They can walk, okay, but they cannot sit down in the tashahhud. It hurts their feet. Or they have knee problems, right? Whenever they bend their knees, it hurts. They have arthritis, okay? But they can walk fine. When their legs are straight, standing up, they can walk fine, but it's when they bend, they have problems. What should that person do? Is it permissible for him to sit throughout the whole prayer? Or is it only permissible for him to sit in those positions in which he cannot do properly? He cannot stand up or not do properly? Second opinion?
Second one, yeah.
Okay, so that's the strongest opinion amongst many of the scholars, is that the person is allowed to sit in those positions in which he cannot perform properly, right? For sitting, the tashahhud, you can't sit on your feet, you can sit on a chair, but then for the sujood, you should come down from the chair and go into the sujood. If you cannot stand up, right, for a long time, for more than maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, until, you start getting extreme pain in your feet or knees, then you can make the takbirat al-ihram and then sit down. Okay? But if you can stand up, if you can walk and things like this, during the qiyam position, you should always be what? You should always be standing. But if you have back problems, you can't make ruku, then you can what? Then you can sit down. So any of the positions in which you don't have any pain, you should be doing it the way it's supposed to be done. But any of the positions you can't, then you can have the exception and either sit or take the other options which are available.
What about if you're praying in Jama'ah and you're standing in front of your chair
You're standing in front of your chair now.
when you're supposed to be in line with everyone?
Okay, yeah. This issue comes up a lot. So, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he told us to make our rows straight. Encouraged us very highly to make the rows straight, close the gaps, foot to foot, shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest, like the chest should be aligned, the shoulders should be aligned to the best of our abilities. So that should be, when you stand up, okay, when you stand up, your feet should be lined up with the feet of the brother who's next to you. Okay? But that comes, right, when you come to sit down, then your feet aren't lined up, but your chest and torso would be lined up with them when you sit down, right? So, which one do you do? I mean, if your feet are lined up in the beginning, that means that your torso is not going to be lined up when you sit down, most likely, right? But if you sit down and the chair is up in the row a little bit, right, then your torso may be lined up, but your feet will be in front. So this is, an issue of ijtihad, which you need to figure out what is the best. Because one thing you need to keep in mind is the people behind you.
Yeah.
If you're in the front row,
That's the thing.
that's why anybody who's in a chair or anybody who's handicapped or things like that, they should pray
To the side.
at the end of the rows. This is how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would do. He would gather, he said, right, لِيَلِيَنِي أُولَى الْأَحْلَامِ مِنْكُمْ وَالنُّهَى. He said the people who should be right behind me in the prayer are those who are the most knowledgeable about the deen. Those who are hafaz of the book of Allah, who can correct the imam, and those who have most knowledge of the sunnah and fiqh, who can, remind the imam if he forgets something in the prayer. And then what would he do with the young boys, the youth? He would line them up towards the end of the rows. Normally the youth and those who had special needs and things like that, they would be at the end of the rows and things like that. So that's the issue now. Like if you're praying in the front row with a chair, you don't want to take the place of prostration from the brother in the second row. So that's why, in my opinion, I think it's better that you line the chair up if you're praying in the front row. These people behind you in the second row, you line the chair up with the line. Okay, you line the chair up with the line so that you're not prohibiting or preventing the brother behind you to make prostration, inshallah. But if there's nobody behind you, then I would do it the other way. So it would depend on the situation. If you know, like for example, Dhuhr prayer, maybe not a lot of people come in. You know, it's only one row. Then I would line it up, right? Line the front of the chair where your feet are, line my feet up with the row, right? Or maybe put it in the middle. You know, it's an issue of ijtihad. And the ones who do that, they have an excuse, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be merciful with them. inshallah.
The straightening of the lines.
Yeah.
Should that be done by the heel of the feet, cross the line all the way? The back of the feet, not the toes at the tip of the line, everybody toes up, but the heel should be lined up with the back of the line?
Excellent question. What do you think? What do you know?
The heel should be lined up at the back. Because when you go to look at the street, see if the lines are straight, and all the feet are at the back of the line, then all the backs are straight going down.
Okay.
Some people got fronts out, in, out. If you line up by the toe, they'll be in, they'll be out. But if you line up by the back of the feet, at the back of the line, everything is straight.
What's the proof?
Well, this is done by the sheikhs that I know from Virginia. This is one of the explanations.
Excellent. So the Shaykh, if I say the Shaykh says, is that a proof?
No.
Okay.
Hadith.
Alhamdulillah. What's the hadith?
I know that hadith, but I cannot.
Okay, I'll remind you guys. I wanted to just test you guys. Alhamdulillah. So we need to get into the habit of knowing the proof for what we do. Right? We need to get into the habit of getting back to the nusus. Right? Don't attach yourself to personalities. Okay? Attach yourself to the proofs that those personalities are giving. Because everybody makes mistakes. Right? Nobody's perfect. So this issue is a very good issue, very important issue, which many of us, I think, subhanAllah, I think the convert and revert community, I think they practice it better than a lot of our brothers who may be immigrants and coming from their countries and things like that. And I don't know why, because the hadith are clear, right? The ayah are clear. We have no basically ayah, but we have many hadith, more than one. And the way that the hadith came, it's all amr. The Prophet, he said, right? What did he say? He said from the hadith, istaw. This is one order. Istaw, make the row straight. I'tadilu. I'tadilu, you know, don't leave anybody leaning out, leaning back like this. Tarasu. All of these are what? Hadi awamir bil-lughat al-arabiyyah. So anytime we have an order in the Arabic language, it is used as what? Something which is obligatory for you to do. Okay? But not only that, we have many, right? Stawu sufufakum. Right? Stawu sufufakum. Right? Ali yukhallifanna Allahu bayna qulubikum wa bayna wujuhikum. Right? لا تختلفوا فتختلف قلوبكم. وفي الرواية وتختلف وجوهكم. So we have hadith which are ordering us to straighten the rows. Sudd al-khalal, Sudd al-faraj. Another order from the Prophet Muhammad, close the gaps. So all of the hadith which came are ordering us to close the gaps, ordering us to make the rows straight, ordering us to keep our bodies straight at the same level. But to add on to that and to show more emphasis, we have other hadith which come, which prohibit doing the opposite of that. So this makes it even more stronger for the opinion of those who said that straightening the rows and closing the gaps is obligatory, such as Imam Bukhari, such as other scholars as well. Right? So they say la takhtalifu, meaning it's a prohibition. You can't differ in the rows, in the ranks, because if you differ in the ranks and the rows, then your hearts are going to differ. So, and Anas ibn Malik, radiallahu anhu, the great companion of the Messenger of Allah, the servant of the Messenger of Allah, the one who served the Prophet for 10 years, lived with the Prophet for a long period of his life, one of the companions who lived the longest time after the Messenger of Allah, he said, in his time, he said, I remember during the time of the Prophet Muhammad that when we used to pray, we used to line up our ankle with our ankle, with the ankles of our next person, our knees with the knees of the next person, our shoulders with the shoulders of the next person. But now, he's talking about his time. He says, now when you go to do that, the people, they flee from you as if it is a wild donkey running away somewhere. Anas ibn Malik said this himself. And this is his time. So this thing of not connecting the feet has started, over 1300 years ago, in the time of Anas ibn Malik. So the farther we get away from the generation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more farther we get away from practicing the Sunnah. But I want to take this to another level, another aspect of it. If we can't stand foot to foot and shoulder to shoulder with our brothers in the most beloved places of Allah, how are we going to help our brothers outside of the community? How is our bond and our connection going to be with our brothers outside the community? And why wouldn't you want to touch feet with your brothers? What's the problem? That's what you need to ask yourself. Is he dirty? Does he stink? Is it because he's, from this country or that country, or he doesn't speak Arabic, or he doesn't speak English, or this? What's the problem?
I think, do you know anything about the fiqh issue? Some of the people, I believe it's from the
Different from that.
Hanafis, they seem to,
Well, they believe that it should be 4 fingers width apart. 4 fingers width apart. And as I said, when you look at the proofs, all those proofs that I just mentioned, all of that has no validity at all. We love Abu Hanifa. He was one of the greatest scholars of fiqh, one of the greatest scholars of Islam. But we do what he said. What was Abu Hanifa's madhab? إذا صح الحديث فهو مذهبي. If the hadith is authentic, then this is my madhab. He told his students, Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani and Abu Yusuf, he says, don't write down what I say. Don't write down my opinions in fiqh. Because I might say something today, and then tomorrow I may change my opinion. All of the great imams said this. So we love and we respect and we honor all of the great imams, but we honor and we love and respect the proof even more. So they may have made these opinions and they weren't maybe aware of those hadith, which come and show Sudd al-Khalal, Sudd al-Faraj. Right? Maybe he didn't come across those hadith, which say to close the gaps. Because those hadiths are clear. There's no way that somebody could understand that, that a space this much between one foot and another foot is closing a gap. There's still a gap there. So even some other madhab as well have some things as well. I think the Shafi'i madhab, I don't know, I think it's 2, in some implementations of some place, they have 2 fingers width and things like that. So the Hanabila, when you go to Saudi Arabia, they don't even pray foot to foot. They don't pray ankle to ankle or shoulder to shoulder. They pray with their feet out like that. So your tips of your toes will be touching with the tips of the other person's toes. The only people that I've seen really pay attention to that are Ahlul Hadith. Ahlul Hadith from India, from the people who really pay attention to the narrations of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in many communities here, many of the communities that you find, the indigenous Muslim communities, they pay attention to it. But at the same time, it needs to come with education, right? Don't make it a big issue, okay? Don't make it a reason for argumentation and fighting and fitna and masjid splitting up and things like this. Take it easy, right? Take it easy, okay? You gotta educate your brothers first, right? Education takes time, right? It takes time and it takes effort. And it takes progressive advancing, not all in one day. We can't do everything all in one day, right? And another thing, when you do it, to be wary of is that you don't harm your brother. Some people, they do it so hard where they're pushing on their brother's foot, stepping on his foot. This is why he doesn't want to touch your foot, because you're stepping on his foot. I wouldn't either, I don't care. It takes it's priority that you don't harm your brother or bother your brother over you touching your heel with his shoulder.
Well, I'm telling you, every masjid I went to, their name was Hadith or Quran.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, DC. Wallahi, we love the tightness. Foot to shoulder to shoulder. Everybody's loving it, feeling it, no problem. You come outside of those masjids, you got all kinds of stuff going on.
No, that's why it needs education, right? It needs education and tabriyah. And another thing too, it's easy to do, it's easy to do. It has so many benefits. Number one, you can make more room in the rows, right? You come closer to your brother, right? You become to love him more, and you feel that tightness, that real bond. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, right? Al-mu'min lil-mu'mini kabunyan yashudduhu ba'duhu ba'da. Allah, he says in the Quran, right? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ايش الآية في سورة الصف في بنيان مرصوص إن الله يحب الذين يقاتلون في سبيله كأنهم بنيان مرصوص. In Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the believers, those who fight in His sake and those who struggle in His sake, right? And those who establish the prayer as if they are what? A bunyan marsus, as if they are a cemented wall, which is like a building together. If you ever see a wall which has different bricks and things like this is how the believers should be in their prayer. And this is how they stand when they are in times of jihad and things like this and fighting, right? One to the next. This is how we should also stand in our prayers. So one thing to keep in mind when you do that, it's easy to do, but you have to know how to stand as well, right? Your feet shouldn't be no more than shoulder length, right? They should be at least shoulder width, right? They should not be more than shoulder width, right? And try not to like push against your brother and things like that, right? And some people can't do it. You know, that's the thing. You have to make an excuse to. Some people, they can't turn their foot like that. You know, just because maybe they've been used to it for certain years and their knees are at a certain way, their ankles are at a certain way, they can't do it. But at least try to have one of the two touching, either the shoulders or the feet. The shoulders or the feet, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And one more question, inshallah.
Yeah. Let's agree with your permission.
Inshallah.
We will, the way it should be, it's really like argumental between us and other mosques. You say that's the way it should be, and that's
If you're in the front row.
that's the way it should be.
I believe that that's the best way if there is another row in the back, so you don't disturb anybody. Yeah.
If you're in the middle. What you said is so correct. We should be in the line up at the against the wall first. But sometimes you come in the middle of the prayer, so you put your chair. But when I stand like this, the other brothers will complain. Say, brother, stay in line, go like that. You move my chair, so we don't want to argue.
No, you shouldn't
It's
do that.
educational.
No. Yeah, no.
It's really educational.
No. Come
The other thing is really when you said some of our brother convert here, they pray better or they worship Allah better than us. It's true, because we are habitual.
No.
You do it because you really study it, and you're so convinced and you're very strong. You back up your.
Inshallah.
But you are habitual. You're not talking about our comfort.
Ada.
And you really do. You follow up to the letter.
We try.
Because he said, if you argue with him, he said, look for another religion. Because he did it. And the other.
It's not the case with everybody, doctor. You know, I mean, you have a lot of converts. SubhanAllah, they come in and they go out just like a arrow goes in a bow.
No, really.
They're in prison. You know, yeah, assalamu alaikum, akhi. You know, this and that. MashaAllah, they're the best Muslims. They come out, they're back on the block. Another month, they're back in prison. Hey, I got caught out. You know, and they're back in the block selling things like that. So you have, you have good and you have bad.
One of the brother convert, he adopted Islam for this raw business. I told him, why you accept Islam? He said, I watch the TV. When we call them pray in Mecca, in 1 minute,
Everybody line up.
perfect lines. He said, I'm in the army. If I try to do this and get the people shoulder to shoulder, this foot to foot,
Take minutes.
the next prayer will come. He said, I said to myself, religion like this, well organized, it has to be followed.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, one other thing, man.
One more
Wallahi,
question.
One other thing, Wallahi. This is a
Comment or question?
Some of the, no, Wallahi, in straightening the lines with the prayer, these imams need to, like they be doing before, they need to go up and down these lines and make sure that they straight.
That was what the Prophet did.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the way it should be done.
Well, that's
They
what
don't do
I
it.
said. It takes
But the thing is,
education.
today we have like this brother, he have really excuse. He have healthy power. But we have some.
Spread it between one
Yeah.
Exception to the rule.
and the
Yeah,
two months.
but we have some. They play soccer. When they come to play, they play on the chair. They play soccer outside.
Yeah.
They come pray, they play on the chair.
I'm sorry.
But
Tomorrow is the fight.
Try the deal.
إذا كان كل
Yes.
Allah knows that.